So my title is Belgrade School of Robotics, as Dan suggested. And this what, why, and how, it's by my own addition to this title, because I think it is not easy to explain what is meant by Belgrade School of Robotics, why it happened, and how it happened. I mean, when I speak about Belgrade School of Robotics, maybe it should be normal to talk first about achievements, because there were really great achievements. There was scientific research, very rich and very successful, very advanced. There were results published in journals, like scientific papers, a lot of books translated to English, to Japanese, to Russian, to Chinese, and so on. There were a lot of realization. And, by the way, there is another reason to speak about achievements, because from time to time we witness some unfair behavior from our colleagues from overseas, but we will not talk about it. I will skip it. Because our guests, who are seniors, they know everything, so there is no need to speak about realization and trying to convince them, because they are already convinced. They know everything. And for younger researchers, and I see there are some younger researchers, I would like to say that they are well in searching, using search engines and so on. So they should always, when touching some topic, they should consult the search engines and check what are the original references. What are the first references of some topics? Not to take just the last few, because they may sometimes hide the truth. So look deep, always try to find the original references, then you will see who has done what. This presentation actually will not have slides like Surgeon. There will be something on the board, but it will not be something that you should try to read, because it is, at my age, I need some memo to see, to avoid to skip something accidentally. So this is more for me than the slides than for the listeners. I will try to speak my presentation like a story, so just oral presentation. Of course, I cannot pass through the main achievements, and let me tell you, there were, in Belgrade School of Robotics, we can distinguish two, let me say, call it departments. But since it was not an institution, then the department is not an appropriate name, but I cannot have in mind some better term to use. So the two departments, one running by Professor Tomović and the other run by Professor Vukobratović. We heard a lot today about the results and achievements of Professor Tomović and his team, and I will tell first few words about this other group run by Professor Vukobratović. Like Tomović is well known for the Belgrade hand, in the same way Vukobratović was known for the active exoskeleton, the first robotic exoskeleton in the world, and connected to it the famous ZMP theory of bipedal walking stability. There was a difference in approach with these two teams. Raiko's team didn't like mathematical models, so the book was called, then just remind me if I'm wrong, but it was non-model control. The other department, Vukobratović department, loved mathematics and mathematical modeling, so they did everything based on mathematical models. What was that when I say all, everything based? What I mean by everything? First, they invested a lot of effort to develop mathematical models of robot dynamics. In the free motion, in the constrained motion, in the assembly operation, and so on. They also developed mathematical models of bipedal walking, and from there they concluded about the theory that is necessary to allow stable bipedal walking. By the way, practically all advanced bipedal walking robots are using this ZMP theory to produce a stable gait. Later, this mathematical model were used to develop so-called dynamic control. It's a control that is based on dynamic model and a full nonlinear dynamic model based on second-order differential equations. It was the first time that somebody developed a dynamic control. Then also the next item that followed from these mathematical models was the computer-aided design system for robots, also based on the full dynamics, and so on and so on. So we could speak about Raiko's and Vuk's contribution, the whole conference and taking few days. So I will simply say, okay, this way mentioning Raiko and mentioning Vuk, I paid the debt to these two big names. And now I will move my presentation in another way, trying to speak about professional achievements, but you will see something different. My idea is to organize my presentation in the following way. So I will make citation from the abstract that is available to you in the materials, and then I will give some comments on these citations. So the first citation, Belgrade School of Robotics has never been an institution, I will read this, has never been an institution or a formalized project. It was a common name for a movement that started in the 60s of the last century and still lasts. Surprisingly and unexpectedly, this movement, born and grown in a small and relatively poor country, managed to earn position among leaders in an extremely advanced and promising field of science. It is underlined. Let me make some comments. First, about whether it was Belgrade, only Belgrade, or it was something wider than Belgrade. At the beginning, this movement starts in Belgrade, but soon the contacts with Slovenian colleagues were established, very fruitful collaboration, and so we were not alone anymore. Although the other centers of ex-Yugoslavia were not so interested in robotics, so there was only practically Belgrade and Ljubljana. Also, the next comment, was it right to say about that it was here in Yugoslavia, small and poor country? I think yes. It was not. Yugoslavia was almost 20 million inhabitants. So it was not small if you compare with current Serbia, current Slovenia, Montenegro, Bosnia, and so on. So in such discussion, it is not small. But we should know that when School of Robotics in Belgrade was born, the competitors that we have in mind were America, Soviet Union, and Japan. Comparing with them, we were a very small country. And poor, yes. Yes, poor because the budget in America or Japan was so huge for robotics that we can call ourselves small and poor country. New citation is about the topic that was elaborated, the research topics elaborated in Belgrade School of Robotics. The just mentioned extremely advanced and promising field of science was actually robotics. But robotics in its most advanced appearance. It was biologically inspired robotics. One may even say that the topics initiated and elaborated in Belgrade School of Robotics often came too early to be fully understood and implemented. So this school became a kind of a generator, a nursery of new ideas, which later found their elaboration in research centers worldwide. Now, in comments, we can pose the question, this biologically inspired robotics, was it really so advanced? I think yes, because biologically inspired robotics is a hot topic even today. And in the 60s, when the school was born, it was something like practically a science fiction. Because there was no clear vision of for implementing such system. Industry didn't need biologically inspired robotics. Economy didn't need it. But it was elaborated in Belgrade School of Robotics, although without any economic reasons. Let me say it was a kind of a pure science. I like to say it was the adventure of the mind and spirit. Beautiful. For a researcher, perfect. Let me mention two already mentioned examples elaborated in Belgrade School of Robotics. It was world's first bionic hand, idea by Professor Tomović, and the other is world's first active exoskeleton and ZMP stability theory, coordinated by Professor Vukobratović. Well, I said that this was a pure science without any economic reasons. Nobody asked for these systems to be made. But actually, if we look twice, we can conclude that it was generally possible to turn these results into something commercial. I think that even now, if you take Belgrade hand and redesign it to use this modern technology, you can make something that can be put on market and make money on that. The same is with the exoskeleton. The new exoskeletons are not so advanced comparing with this. Actually, they are not at all advanced. They are the same, but with a new package, a new fashion look and so on, and new motors and so on, but the principles are equal. So these results could be turned into something profitable. But we may conclude that commercial reasons were not the true key for the choice of topics in Belgrade School of Robotics. I have my personal opinion about that, so I will expose it to you just as my own vision. If you imagine one real scientist, I mean true scientist who loves science, and if you give to this scientist complete freedom to choose any topic he wants, I'm quite sure that he will finally come to questions about human life, life in general, and so on. This would be, I'm sure, the most attractive topics for a true scientist, something related to such notions. It seems to me that there is some inherent need in humans that force them to make the copy of themselves. So it's not by mistake that the ancient legends always show some artificial people, like Talus, a giant made of brass in Greek legends. So there are always some artificial creatures in the form of humans, so artificial humans. Even the Karel Čapek, who is the father of the name robot, in his play, his main character, because in his play the robots described by Karel Čapek are live creatures, but so biological robots. And the main character is the engineer who is producing these robots, and he was pushed by a foolish idea to prove God that he is unnecessary and absurd. So there is something irrational that forces people to do, I say, humanoid robotics, but generally to discuss the questions of human life and life in general. Next citation is very important. It deals with impact made by Belgrade School and the environment where it was born. Belgrade School of Robotics showed something important. Small can beat the big. This is another reason why the phenomenon of the school should be considered rather instructive and encouraging. The scientific society in general could learn something from rereading the story of the school. In the past years, the researchers from rich countries often posed the fundamental question: how was it possible that such advanced research was done regardless of restrictions in important prerequisites? I mean, missing high budget, not many doctoral students available, lack of proper support from the state and industry. A clear and convincing answer is still lacking. The current discussion, my presentation, would like to give some piece of answer to bring the listeners closer to the final understanding. Comments are questionable. It's my own vision of this citation. So, what was the social environment where Belgrade School of Robotics was born? It was something that was called socialism. In theory, it looked like a long corridor towards an ideal society called the communism. Of course, people believed in that. Not everybody, but a lot of people believed. Now, some of them now are ashamed to say that they believed. But okay, why not? People believed in religion, they could believe in communism. It's free for why not? What is important, and everybody will agree with that, is that it was the time where there was a lot of enthusiasm. People had some feeling of collective, and they were ready to work hard for this collective. People generally were closer to poverty than to richness. But this is a tricky statement, because you can be rich, you can be very rich in absolute measures. But if around you people are much richer than you, you feel bad, you're frustrated. But if you reasonably rich or the same or reasonably poor, but of course if you satisfied your key biological needs, and then if you are reasonably rich or poor, and all around you are about the same or a bit above you, but not too much, you feel good. You are all like the others, and you are in position to have your own needs satisfied, the main needs, and okay, you feel good. So what matters is the relative relation comparing to the others, and not the absolute measures. So material issues at that time was not decisive. Now what is important is to see how topics for research were selected in this socialism. That system considered science as a show window to the external world. So it was important to present your country so that the others looking from the outside can say, wow, they are really, really advanced country. So it was a show window to the external world. Nobody, when I say nobody, I have in mind the decision makers. So nobody required or asked or expected from science to give answers or to help in practical problems. No need. It was enough to serve for the propaganda. So any scientific topic was okay. Any scientific topic was okay until it has results and it can present visible results. So if you decide to take some very exotic topic, but you have results, you go to conferences, you publish papers, you write books, you are called for as a key speaker or as a panel presentations and so on, then you are serving your propaganda role, and it was okay regarding the decision makers. Nobody will ask you, so why are you doing this topic? No, it was not important. So, the members of the school of robotics had a free selection, completely free selection. And actually it was a privilege. And many Western researchers admitted that they were jealous, because I heard from some very influential research people that who have large laboratories with huge number of projects and so on. And when they are honest, they say, wow, I dream about a situation where I could do something that is really interesting to me, personally to me, not to industry, not to any factory, but directly to me. I love that topic and I would like to do it, but nobody is going to pay for it. And of course, with such topics, they would not make money, so they are decided to work for money, for industrial projects, and not for their own interest. People in Belgrade School of Robotics had this privilege, and when they had a free choice, they focused on the most interesting topic, and it was bio-inspired robotics. Now it's the most questionable citation from the abstract about leaders. The citation says the following: this entire movement was driven by creativity and enthusiasm of the two leaders, Raјka Tomovиќa and Miomir Vukobratović. I will probably call them Raiko and Vuk. It's more simple and more shorter. And of course, there was contribution of a number of most talented students who joined the school and stayed in the school for some time or forever. Now the comments. The fact that there were two leaders was good news, because it showed that this small and poor scientific society was able to produce two world reputable scientists, pioneers in the field. But this fact was also bad news, because there were two. And as we know, now I will make some citation from my favorite fiction movie. The citation is, there can be only one. The film lovers will remember it is citation from a fiction movie, Highlander. So there can be only one, and there were two. It is not a secret, at least not for seniors, that the leaders did not agree on many issues. Actually, they didn't get along well. It's probably human behavior. Finally, Newton and Leibniz did not get along well. Newton, Leibniz, Tesla and Pupin also. So it's probably natural human behavior, and it was the case. At this point, I have to specify how I look at the above statements. This presentation will not ask who is at fault for the disagreements. People are never fully black or fully white. We all are somewhere placed on the gray scale. The brightness or darkness of our shade of gray depends on what we take into account, and it changes from time to time. Here, in this presentation, when speaking about people like Raiko and Vuk, we should just look at their bright side through their contributions to the Serbian and Yugoslav general level of science, and even to the level of science worldwide. And this contribution by the two leaders was really great. What was common for these two scientists? It's very important. It was passion for science. Actually, without passion, you can make some small achievements, but real high and valuable achievements can be done only by passion. Without that, there's nothing. It seems that science was the main issue in their lives. I'm sure if someone asked Raiko or Vuk, "Who are you? How do you see yourself?" the answer would probably be, "I'm a scientist at the first place." All activities and priorities in their lives were in function of science. That passion was the key for the success. It's a prerequisite. You can make money without passion, but the real result will not come. What was different between them? Concerning science, Raiko liked to consider science at the level of ideas. He had a perfect feeling for good ideas, for his ideas and for those seen elsewhere. He could fast recognize potentials of an idea and react to this potential. He was very convincing when presenting ideas. One may say that sometimes he was more interested in the idea and in some ideas themselves than in their elaboration. When he had an idea, a new idea, Raiko would give it to some associate for further elaboration, and the associate was free to decide how. This allowed Raiko to immediately turn to the next idea. I may say that he spent his life, and it was equal to his scientific career, playing with ideas. He liked socializing and sport. It's possible that he looked at these activities as being in the function of scientific goals. Concerning science, Vuk always wanted to keep in touch with ideas given to associates, from the origin of the ideas to the elaboration of all details. He was permanently and intensively searching for talented students who would be interested to join the research in robotics. To follow all the details of the work of his associates, it was necessary to invest enormous energy. Vuk was ready to invest such energy as if he was a perpetuum mobile. For instance, Vuk never spent more than half of his holidays. The second part of the holidays he spent in his office working. And I'm sure that the first part that was spent on some Greek beach, he probably was reading not the book, but some scientific papers and some making notes and so on. So on work. And since I know Vuk quite good, I'm ready to say that science was his job, his work, and his hobby. Actually, it was his complete life. Now, I'm sorry I don't have time to speak about collaborators, and it's a very important issue. I will just first give a reminder of a well-known sentence: nobody is an island. So any modern successful scientist relies on a team of talented associates who understand the ideas of the scientist, elaborate the ideas in a creative way, and improve these ideas. Raјko and Vuk had great collaborators. I think that the collaborators in Belgrade School of Robotics could be separated in 3 generations. But I will mention only 3 names from the first generation. It's necessary definitely to mention Professor Rakić, Miodrag Rakić, because he did the design and the manufacturing of the different systems, particularly Belgrade School of Robotics, in the most creative and intelligent way. So he must be mentioned. On the side of Vuk Vratović, it should mention Davor Juričić, who was the co-author of the ZMP theory, and perhaps Dragan Hristić, who did the realizations. Of course, there are many other, on both sides, many other collaborators that should be mentioned, but I simply don't have the time. Just to make clear what I mean by generations. The first generation are, of course, Tomović and Vukovratović, and these mentioned guy collaborators. The second generation is a number of associates, some generation like Dejan Popović and myself, and many others, Dragan Stokić and Vesna Živković, and so on and so on. And finally, there is coming third generation, and they are still to prove that they will keep this school alive after the second generation finally passed away. So, short conclusion. Specific leadership and specific social environment allowed for the movement known as Belgrade School of Robotics. The school still moves because we still believe that the freedom, creativity, and courage in selection of topics in the long run lead to best choices and results. Thank you.